What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin Robbie Billups Station. Tonight is time for Comics Revisited. Tonight we are revisiting Wonder Woman from the New 52. In particular, the Brian Azzarello run with Cliff Chiang, with Tony Akins, with Goran Sudzuka or something, Sudzuka, a bunch of artists, but mostly Cliff Chiang and all Brian Azzarello. I actually love this run, so we're going to reminisce, we're going to revisit because it's Comics Revisited. It's the show where we revisit comics, and we're going to be talking about Wonder Woman. If anybody knows Wonder Woman, Joe knows. It's Joe Corallo, friend of the show.
Oh, hey! Wow. Hi.
Hey, how are you, buddy? Thank you for being here.
No problem. It's about Diana, so gotta be here for some support.
Yeah. Speaking of Diana, his favorite Michael Jackson song is "Dirty Diana." It's J-Strick. What's up, my man?
Station.
Is that true? A true statement about your favorite Michael Jackson song?
I don't know if it's true, but I think this story is about family.
Don't get too far ahead. See, he's gonna steal my bit because he was like, "What's the theme of this run?" I was like, "What's the same theme as Fast and Furious? It's about family." But I'm sure we can break it down more than that. Speaking of breaking it down, it's the man himself, the Brianiac. What's up?
Station. What's up, everybody? Woo! Yeah. Woo! Excited.
Mr. Overhard himself.
Yeah.
So thank you for everybody being here already. We got Chamorro Cinema, who was nominated for Best Channel of the Year on the Comic Book Community Awards. So was I. Everybody go vote for us. Yes. Sam Fett. Fat Batman, Sleepy Reader 666 Damien, a fantastic channel there, who knows his comic, says this was the best run of the New 52. I did a top 5 New 52. I think I put Batman at number 1 because I didn't want to deal with any really shitty comments, but I think it's this or Batman for me. It's consistent. It's good. It felt like it had a direction. This book was doing something completely on its own. So let's talk about it. So in 2011, DC does Flashpoint. They cancel all their books. They relaunch 52 titles, new number ones, and they reboot history. And they get a fresh crop of 90s Marvel editors and writers to come in and do their takes and kind of reinvent some things and maybe tweak some things that didn't work. And it's this whole line-wide initiative. And they changed everything for the most part, except for Batman and Green Lantern, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I know it may be crazy by looking at the sales today, but back then, Batman was a top-selling book. It's crazy, I know. But you get New 52, and some things work, some things don't. Superman, I like the Grant stuff, but nobody ever built on what Grant did. And it just, the stuff that was supposed to be modern day, it's like they didn't know what the hell to do. They brought in Hellspawn for a while, and I thought that was cool, but they didn't do anything with it. Yeah. They bring in, once again, all the Wildstorm characters. They have a Stormwatch book, doesn't do anything. They try to spotlight these other characters like Firestorm, Mr. Terrific, Captain Atom, doesn't do anything. OMAC, which was the Keith Giffen, Dan DiDio one. I freaking love that book. That was a love letter to Kirby. So there was some good stuff. There was some bad stuff. And there was some okay stuff. But I think one of the best runs was Wonder Woman by Brian Azzarello. Now, Brian Azzarello came to my... I came to be known of what Brian Azzarello was known to me from 100 Bullets from Vertigo. And at the time I really liked the book. I think it went too long and they could have wrapped it up a little bit better, but it's still, I don't understand why there's not 100 Bullets like Showtime or HBO TV series. It's perfect for that. Right. Mm-hmm. So Brian Azzarello, I knew as this edgy crime fiction writer. He did that Cage book that was a weird stretch, let's just say that. And he'd done some other stuff, but I really liked 100 Bullets. I thought it was a cool crime noir. I was interested to see what he was going to do with Wonder Woman. And what he did with Wonder Woman was something I really liked. I love this book overall. So he's paired up with Cliff Chiang, who we mostly know now from Paper Girls. Fantastic. Matt Wilson doing the coloring there. There's some other artists here and there. We'll talk about the artwork a little bit more, but overall, I love the run. I love how I've always felt disconnected from Wonder Woman books because I always feel a little bit lost, or that there's compelling stuff there. And I've read Wonder Woman comic books I adore. John Byrne stuff, George Perez stuff, Greg Rucka stuff. But for the most part, it was always hard for me to get into that character. But one thing I love is Greek mythology. And what Brian Azzarello did was he brought in the Greek pantheon in these new, more modern and updated versions that totally work for me. Some people still today think it's weird that Hades has candles on his head or that Poseidon's this big weird sea monster. I ate that shit up. I thought it was awesome. I loved it. I made me care about Diana. They went beyond the typical mythology. They changed elements of that character. I really freaking dig this run. I love it, especially when Cliff Chiang is on the artwork. It freaking soars and it stays consistent all throughout. It's 35 issues, plus there's a 0. There's some point issues in there as well. The villain of the Firstborn was amazing. I had a comic book story back when I was in high school, and I was going to call it Mythos, and it was going to be the final act of Greek mythology that we never got because of the prophecy that one of Zeus's kids would kill him and overthrow him and shit like that. And that's what they do. But the way they interpreted things, it's a little bit like Neil Gaiman, American Gods, and a lot very much rooted in the symbolism and what those gods represent from the original mythology. And all in all, doing a Wonder Woman book. And I think it's super solid. I want to know, because I've been rambling. Joe, what do you think about this run overall? And we have all reread this recently.
Yeah.
Here's my omnibus.
Yeah.
Look how thick that omnibus is, man. It's crazy. It's awesome. Man.
No, it's great. Yeah. No, this was a good time. I read this again last week. I was overall, basically what you were saying is this really worked for me in a lot of ways. I would go as far to say that Brian Azzarello might have been one of the only people involved in writing a New 52 book that got it, because, we'll go into the actual details in a bit, but he seemed to be like, you know what? This isn't going to last forever. They're going to retcon this stuff. Forget it. Let's just do it. Let's go all out. Let's forget anything you knew about the character. This is basically a long-running Elseworld series, and the fact that he was able to pull that off, it makes it one of the few books I feel from the New 52 that still stands up to anything coming out now.
Yeah, what do you think about Azzarello overall as a writer? Other works do you like of his?
Uneven, I guess.
Okay.
I was introduced to him through this run. I had slept on Azzarello, and then I got into this. It's probably the Cliff Chiang art that really got me. I got to check this out. Then I met Brian and Cliff at New York Comic Con 2011. I've got my signed copy of issue 1 for both of them in a box on top of other boxes. So I thought about digging it up, but I'm like, that looks like way too much. So
yeah, PCP's not worth that, right?
But I went back and read other stuff. I've since read 100 Bullets, and I enjoyed that. I really liked Joker and Luther as well. And then I also read Broken City. Oh yeah,
the Batman run. Yeah,
which I think we forgot this as like a society, but there was a brief period of time where he was writing Batman and Superman at the same time.
Yeah,
we did. And it's nuts. You think about it, you're like, did you know that he was doing both books at the same time? And neither worked. But hey,
yeah,
it's
weird that his Broken City was what immediately followed up, if I remember correctly, Hush.
Immediately,
Hush, yes. and so you go from this Jim Lee, more monster Killer Croc, to this guy who's just like an extra in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, but with some messed up teeth and a skin disorder. It's so weird. It's just that one really sticks out, man. And I was trying to be all for it at the time too, but it doesn't. No,
and for Tomorrow, I didn't even bother with.
I've never read that one either, bro. It's a secret, but
I know. I don't need to do that, but and that also leads us into is is Jim Lee the Rock of comics in that he's very talented, but has almost exclusively worked on horrible comics.
It's bizarre.
Damn, that's a hot take.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
But I stand with The Rock, so I don't know.
no, but that's the thing. Like, I saw Rampage. I saw the stupid skyscraper movie, all that stuff, you know. But like, yeah, I'm there.
Yeah.
But like, I've almost never outside like Southland Tales might be the best movie The Rock is in.
I mean, that is the truth, but
yeah.
Okay. I thought you were about to say Southland Tales was the best book Jim Lee did, and I was like, he didn't work on Southland Tales.
But the best the best book that Jim Lee worked on must not be published yet, or was beforehand, because he came in it was a rough time for X-Men, and then he worked on two of the worst Superman stories ever told.
Yeah,
so.
well, we'll get to those one day. All right. Anyway, back to Wonder Woman. And you got me thinking. I was like, I am a Wildcats fan, but Jim Lee never drew any of the really good ones.
No.
J-Strick, I want to know your impression on Wonder Woman. Sorry, I took us off topic there. No, that's a good point, though. You out there in the chat, what's the best Jim Lee comic you've ever read? Let us know. For me, it might be X-Men 1, 2, and 3. J-Strick, what do you think about Wonder Woman?
Probably.
I love this run. It's there was a question in the chat that actually I felt that because I was actually introduced back into comics with the New 52. I stopped reading when I was about 13, so 2011 I was like 20. So I got back into comics with New 52, and I read the solicitation for this series and was very intrigued by the Greek mythology. I was also intrigued by the backlash she was getting a little bit by the way she was being drawn. And so, I hopped on, and you talking about
the No Pants Brigade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a weird stretch. Like
the big controversial
there was
thing.
articles about this.
Yeah, it wasn't that they changed the origin of the character, or that the Amazons were like slaughtering men after having sex with them to procreate, but it was the fact that they wanted to put her in pants.
That was it. I was like, I'm in. So I adore the story. It's what some of you've said, Azzarello and Chiang just killing it, man. I also said this earlier to Robbie today, is like, when I read this even today, one, it still holds up, but two, it's superhero books right now are kind of like disdain for me because I don't find a lot of joy in reading them. But this brought that joy back for me because one, the art and it's the storytelling is great. There's a story A, B, C, D being told. It's not just one story and you have to focus on this one thing, and they tie it all together, and I loved it. So I had a lot of fun rereading it.
Yeah, comic books used to actually have subplots, and they would go and for dozens of issues sometimes before they would resolve. And I mean, but that it took me back to that too. And I like having the full solid run, and like Joe mentioned, like they wrote this shit out so quick. I mean, I think the only thing that they still hold on to is maybe the idea that she's Zeus's daughter. I think that still gets referenced.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I didn't know if that stuck around or not.
Aside from that, like, I don't know what else. Like, they got rid of a lot of this stuff, but it made the character badass.
They retconned everything, essentially.
Yeah, but there's a weirdness, though, to it, that the amount of people who are also like, oh, yeah, I'm so glad she's not made out of clay anymore because that's not believable, was... I always found that kind of stuff to be like, what are you talking about? Like, that, you everything else makes sense, but that was like a sticking point for you.
I don't mind the clay bit. I just think that the Zeus stuff adds an interesting element to Hippolyta more so to me than Diana, which I like. And I don't know, it just played into the whole idea, but I don't know. I actually like that bit on it. But anyway, I like that you said that 2011's New 52 brought you back into comics, J-Strick, because somebody in the chat had asked, what was it like back then, and what was the response on. And so you had people that were like, I'm done with all my DC books, drop them all off my pool. I never want to be a part of this again. You had people, you're not the only one. LW, our buddy Lance, who writes his own comics. I did Black Spec with him. He got into comics, back into them with the New 52. It was an easy jumping on point where a lot of people latched on, and a lot of the books actually started exciting, kind of like they did in Rebirth, kind of like they did after
Arrow,
Death Metal.
Flash,
things they pop at first because it feels like it's a new rush of energy, and then it starts kind of dissipating. We start realizing which ones of these are going to stand the test of time, including Azzarello and Chiang's Wonder Woman. What do you think, Brian, about this whole run overall?
I mean, I think this is like it's an epic. I mean, it is like a Greek epic. I mean, and I think that bringing in her being the daughter of Zeus, is the first anchor, and I didn't try all the New 52, and I've never bought a bunch of Wonder Woman comics, but I bought this one. It might have just been for the cover. I mean, I'm an easy mark like that sometimes. I mean, like I'll do that just because of that. And I hadn't read much Brian Azzarello before that. I think I read that Spaceman, maybe.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I liked and didn't like. And then I read that first issue, I was hooked right away. I mean, I just thought it was brilliant. And then and I think that might have been my first exposure to Cliff Chiang's art too. And I just thought that was super solid. As far as it fitting in New 52, that's an easy one for me. That it's my favorite run because there were some highlights of New 52. I mean, I liked Justice League Dark for a while. Some of the offshoot kind of stuff, but like you said, Robbie, I mean, I think Action Comics 1 through 18 is the only part Superman was done well. And I jumped off the Batman train. I think that was because that was right after Grant Morrison's run, and their work was so solid and affecting that it was like hard for me to wrap my hand around a new Batman run at that time. But I have gone back and read it, and there's a lot of really goodness to it. But this one, this is the third time I've read through it, and I loved it just as much. Like there was, like, when you get familiar with it, you can start maybe picking apart, or it gets slow. But that didn't happen once. Like, I mean, I was just just flipping through the pages. Joe and I traded pictures of our omnibuses. Got them. That was kind of what would slow me down a little bit, was because it's heavy, and my I could keep switching my arms, but eventually they would kind of give out, and so I'd have to go. There you go. Go grab a 22 pager and so. But
you got to get you one of those old man lap book holders.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
Get a page turner with a tiny motor. Take a little while.
I didn't have a problem with my omnibus for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, but yeah, this this. I have not read as much Wonder Woman as a lot of folks. I am making my way through George Perez run, and I really like it a lot. But I had to quit reading it while I was reading this because I was actually confusing the two. At one point, I was like, "Wait."
That's fair. You got to power right through Bill Loeb's run, because Bill Loeb's run is unbelievable.
Well, that's actually the reason why I started it, was because you and Perch interviewed him and were talking about it so much that made me want to. I didn't want to start at Bill's run until I got through George Perez's. So, but I mean, this made me a Wonder Woman fan for life. I mean, this is my favorite Wonder Woman story, and when Dead Earth came out, I was reading that and I loved it. I was like, it's still not this though to me, because it's just maybe it's the length and the fact that it's I've read the Odyssey, the Iliad, a lot of this stuff, and this is that, right? Just in modern times, and it's just so good. So
absolutely. Let's get into the story then, because what I love about what Azzarello did here is he did take these ideas, these notions from mythology, he brought them in, right? And Cliff Chiang's amazing character designs for some of these Greek gods, like Apollo and Artemis looked amazing. Like the coloring, Matt Wilson's doing the coloring there, and this is before I really knew who Matt Wilson was.
Same, yeah.
Right? And so like now knowing who he is and you like knowing who Cliff Chiang is, you're like, yeah, we'll get to the art, but I adored it. I'm always that guy that's trying, like in books I really like, I try to find hidden meaning that's probably never intentionally there. I have racked my brain for 10 years. This is like 10 years old now, this run, y'all. Think about that, right? Oh my God.
That's crazy.
Oh my goodness. But I've racked my brain for 10 years to really try to understand the nuance of why they chose to have Hades have a crown of candles and why it covers his eyes and why they did this interpretation or why they did this, Demeter and Dionysus. I love that they use those gods in interesting ways because we've seen Hermes pop in comic books over and over and over again, whether as the Flash or whether as himself, right? But like to see Hermes as this like bird dude with like these bird like talons, and what an interesting character to understand the nuance that he's not just the messenger god, he's not just the smart communicating one, he's also the thief, he's also mischievous, right? Like, and to throw all that in, to throw all of these elements, these nuances of these characters, and then to formulate a world around Diana. And Joe has read so much more Wonder Woman than I have. But one thing to me that's always been lacking in interest is the world built around Wonder Woman. Everybody likes to kind of do their own thing, and they go back and forth with the Steve Trevor bit, and then they have the Etta Candy stuff, and you know, sometimes they lean too heavy in that all of her villains are her best friends. Like, you know, that gets a little old. Like, so it was nice to have, like, was Game of Thrones out in 2011?
Yeah,
maybe around the,
might have just been starting.
Yeah,
in the early days of Game of Thrones, this is what this kind of could be compared to. Like, it's complex. There's a lot of moving pieces. Everybody's after this throne. Apollo's got his manipulations and plans and schemes going, and then you got Hera. I love these Greek gods. I love the interpretation of them. I love the way they work. I love that the way they play off Diana. They did to Diana in this what I think they did in Superman when they decided to do Crisis, and they were like, there are too many damn Kryptonians, let's just have them be the last one. She's the last Amazon throughout this entire run. And I saw a review earlier that said it didn't feel like that was weighty enough throughout the whole thing, but I feel it. And Diana's all about Zola. That's another new character that's introduced that I'm really into. I think the end of the story, I think it's really well paced. It delivers all the mystery and the suspense and the revelations at a really good pace. It keeps it good and exciting for a monthly comic book, right? But the ending does like the whole like, oh, and it's Athena, and it's actually the baby Zeus. That happens kind of really quickly, and it's almost like a way to just kind of, I feel like we were robbed of, and I didn't read the Finch stuff that came after this, but I feel like we were robbed of what could have spun out of this with Zola, with the Greek gods continuing to be a part of her life, and in more than the classical way that we typically see. Overall, I think the story is really solid. It does just kind of have that thing at the end that bothers me a little bit. But what do you think about the story, Joe, and the structure of it? How Brian did it?
No, I think you're absolutely right with that. I think they use the Zero issue perfectly in the story to fill in that background with Ares. Also, Ares is just Azzarello, right? Like,
yeah, he looks just like him.
He looks just like him, and I think here's some hidden meaning for you. I think Ares was the Azzarello insert insofar as I think Azzarello felt the same way about Diana, that he wrote this character off in the past, and as he got to know Diana and saw how she was, came around to this idea that Diana is worthy of praise and fortune and all of that. So
yeah,
I think that's baked into the story there.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty profound. I never thought, but you're right. He looks just like him. Now, a lot of people were thrown off by the representation of Ares. I liked it. He was like this old guy. He's tired. He's drinking too much cheap whiskey. He's got bloody feet. What were your Like, what did you think when it first happened?
Oh, I loved all of that. I loved just how you're saying about the redesigning all the characters, and they were different. This was unlike any Ares we saw in the comics before. A lot of times, Ares, particularly like pre-Crisis, would just be like, "I've come back to claim Themyscira as my own," and that kind of stuff. But this was different. They all felt like different, unique, and interesting interpretations. I love the bit too with Hippolyta getting turned into clay and then timing it just right when she comes back.
Yeah.
Because you're just reading the whole thing. You're like, when's she coming back? Because she's going to come back. One of the things I think that's part of this legacy through what they were doing was the men of Themyscira. Again, like this to me shows like Brian was like, I know they're going to retcon this stuff. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
There's going to be men on Themyscira, and they ditched the men just like Spartans would ditch, children that weren't worthy of combat. It's the same thing. So to be able to weave in that element and still tie it into, Greek history, mythology was perfect. And then having them, come back at the end. But that whole bit also, I think, set up for one of the most disastrous bits of Wonder Woman in the past few years, which is when James Robinson introduced her brother.
Oh, yeah.
That sucked. What an embarrassment. What a just awful story. But just that whole bit, like Wonder Woman was lost in the woods for a while. But going back to this right here, I mean, that set that kind of stuff up. Everything about Wonder Woman, every issue or so, there would be like another bit where it would be like, oh, we're changing this aspect of the mythology. You had Hermes in it, and Hermes is a big part of the George Perez run in particular. Mm-hmm. Hermes is in it, but a completely different character. There's not like, you see Steve Trevor for like, a couple of pages in one of the issues involved in it, but like there's no real presence of Steve Trevor or Etta Candy. There's nothing to do with a lot of the other characters that like George Perez and others had set up as like her support network. None of the villains that everyone rehashes all the time show up. No Cheetah. It's like you finish reading this and it like brings a tear to your eye because you're like, I'm so happy they didn't bring Cheetah in. Because every time, I love the character of Cheetah when she's done right. And I think early on, through Perez and Bill Loeb's runs on that book, those like 100 issues after Crisis, it's great. She's used like just enough. Yeah. But it's just constantly, it's like, it's Cheetah, it's Dr. Psycho, it's Silver Swan. Yeah. It's Ares, but Ares is here, done completely different, not a villain. And it's just this rehab over and over of the same villains. And to see them handle a story like this to subvert other elements of it, because there's the whole bit where towards the end where she's seeing war, but it's not really war, but and they're talking and she's like bleeding out, and it's that like whole bit of sometimes like the truth isn't the most important thing. Yeah. And again, just brilliant. It showed a clear understanding of Wonder Woman and doing things to change that while also keeping true to the character. It's unreal that Brian was able to pull that off.
Yeah, right. And one of the things I always liked for instance, thought the best stuff with Diana was where she was more badass, more like the Spartans or something like that. When she snaps Max Lord's neck, I'm like, yay, let's do that. That's awesome. But like this book kind of leans into the violent nature of the character, but at the same time, without going overboard into the whole ambassador for peace, like that is prevalent in the idea of truth and what is truth and what does it mean in real life? And what does that mean when it comes to the lies and the deception of the family around her and things like that. I freaking, and the truth to herself of, I think one of the reasons why he took, he wanted to make her the last Amazon to kind of maybe just focus on that and not focus on Paradise Island, not focus on, and they couldn't use Artemis, right? So they had to use, what was her name? I can't remember. They have a stand-in for her, right? But I think that they did that to kind of, to pull it away from that and do their own thing and have Diana be able to be a character in a fleshed out world outside of everything that's been done before. And you're right. Like, was Azzarello the only one that got the memo? You know what I'm saying? I think Grant got the memo, maybe. Snyder didn't get the memo. They didn't send it to him, though. They were just like, keep doing what you're doing, but now you got Grant Capullo.
I feel like Grant would have done that, getting the memo or not, though. Like, Grant was just like, you're hiring Grant to do what Grant does. So
Grant would just be like, it's time for Golden Age Superman. Let's do it. He's fighting landlords. It's great. He's Jesus. He's fighting landlords. All right. Speaking of fighting landlords, J-Strick's been in a battle with his. What do you think about the writing and the story of this run?
I think it's dope, man. I think it's a dope take on Wonder Woman. I think all the tidbits and changes, but also what's the word? Homages and to Greek mythology are just beautiful. I love every bit they introduce. I don't think anything that comes to mind that I disliked. I love the spin and takes on the characters. You have all these players on the board, right? And I love the way that they used them. How you kind of think War is going to be the villain, but he's kind of the heart. And I love how Apollo is just fucking gangster, dude. I love it. He's
pushing it with the firstborn, though, bruh. Every time I'm reading those pages, I'm like, bro, you need to calm down. You need to calm down.
I love it. He banished his mother to a mortal body. I love that.
Yeah.
I just loved all of it. And it's so, it feels like, just like I said earlier, it captured some of that joy of just reading a superhero comic for the first time, because you felt like when you read an issue, you knew what was going on, and then it was going to take a big turn that you didn't even know was coming. But you enjoyed it and welcomed it because you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm there for that, and I love it. Even the whole the Amazons, that whole bit that Joe was mentioning with them, throwing away the children and whatnot. I thought that was just interesting. Like, it's a different take, and
some people were pissed.
It's refreshing. Some people
are still pissed about that, bro.
I know. I find it refreshing. It's not the same book over and over, right? The same villain she's facing. It's something totally different. And I welcomed it, and it's a joy to even reread it 10 years later, which is freaking crazy to say.
Yeah. Right. Man, that means me and you have known each other for like 10 years.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That is freaking weird. I love that they can, like you mentioned, that War was kind of the heart of the piece. And that's not me trying to do some Brian Azzarello wordplay. War was the heart of the piece.
Hey.
Anyway, see, Joe, you're not the only one that can throw out the cool wordplay and puns, right?
That's fair.
But no, the relationship between Ares and Diana in this book is amazing. You're right. That Zero issue, and the way that they did the Zero issue to be like this comic book from another reality that we never got. They do that all the time now. But for that was really freaking interesting, the way that they sold that Zero issue. So that relationship is a big core of this book that I love. And it seems like in every single arc, they change some kind of, mythical fact that we know about Wonder Woman, right? Like, she is not made of clay. She's the child of Zeus. The Amazons are not just this perpetual, female race. They actually have babies, but they kill the men after they, and they get rid of the boys, right? Mm-hmm. She's the god of war. They do all this stuff. They keep subverting expectations and building something with it though. They're not just doing it to do it. You know, like a lot of people will come in and do a book and they'll be like, hey, you know how like this thing about this character that y'all love, we're just going to spin that around. Why? Because it's different. So it's cool, right? It's hip. But they actually built something with the changes that they made here. And it's sad to see how it doesn't get the... Anyway, somebody's read that Finch book, I'm sure. Brian, what do you think about the story?
Well, I know pacing was mentioned, and that was like my first note was that I really like the pacing of this because obviously everything has slow moments, but it wasn't a slow buildup. I mean, it started right from the go, right? I mean, they're, she's on the run, trying to, Hera's chasing her, and Strife's involved, and it just, but the way it keeps going, though, I think, is just the stakes keep getting raised, as the story keeps getting, as it keeps going along, and like, Wonder Woman's leveling up, and then she's going through the, villains, kind of are coming in and out. It just like it, like I said, there's a couple of slow moments, but, overall, and it's not slow in a bad way. It's just like, that's where the characters are like trying to figure out what they're going to be doing or, wrestling with some other, kind of thing going on. I did think that I do think that the end is a little abrupt, but at the same time, like, I don't know what else they would have done because I mean, there's not much left to do because, the Firstborn had pretty much destroyed everything. Right.
It makes me
like they kind of had to,
it makes me wonder what the plan was, right? Like, cause it feels like the story wraps up when it needs to, but then they just kind of throw in that last bit there about, like the explanation of the baby and Zola being Athena and Zeus, it happens so freaking quick. It just, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how long this run was intended to go. Like if it was a plan for that or whatever, but the rest of the story I think does wrap up perfectly. Like it all leads right to where it needs to go.
It would have been nice if he got like one more issue to do like an epilogue to kind of wrap certain things up, but it was all worth it because the next run is considered one of the worst Wonder Woman runs of all time. So,
have you read it, Joe?
Get a single issue, man.
Not in a long time, but that was the hatred and vitriol of that run. Like runs to this day. It was, oh my God. It's a shame because again, like David Finch is a great artist. But just no.
Yeah. And it sucks because when you read the omnibus or you revisit it like we're doing tonight, right? Like you get to that end and you're like, well, that's the end. Like that's all you're gonna get.
Yeah, that's
like no use going forward.
Don't.
I was gonna say I did meet Brian Azzarello at a Comic-Con in 2019. And since this was the main thing I was familiar with, and I think Dark Knight 3 had come out, and I did like that one. So I brought these issues with me or a couple of them and got them signed. And I just told him, I was like, I mean, this is just one of the best runs of anything I've ever read, really. And so he told me that, like, he said that one of the, I guess DC had approached him to do a specific character, and they were asking him for ideas. And he said in the middle of it, he said, well, I've got this idea for Wonder Woman. And he explained the pitch, and then they gave him the Wonder Woman thing, and I was like, okay. And I was like, well, what was the other one? He goes, can't tell you. I was like, come on, man. So I don't know, but it was
Rorschach. That was the other one. It was Rorschach.
I'm sure it was
because that's another one he did. I forgot about.
Right.
Oh, he did do that. That was way before that, though. I mean, that was
I don't know.
I'm just like 2007.
It was OMAC.
I forgot about that.
It was OMAC.
Yeah.
And Dan's like, no, buddy, that's mine.
There's only so many things he could have done instead, like maybe Green Lantern or Flash, but like because he already took cracks at Superman and Batman.
And Green Lantern was John, so maybe it was Flash.
It might have been Flash.
Maybe it was Mr. Flash. Terrific, and then they read Cage, and they're like, "No, we're not letting you do that."
Yeah, no, it was good call.
But that was why I knew what he looked like when you mentioned that you thought War was like him, and it just flashed me. I was like, oh my God. He looked exactly
when
like
I met him. He didn't quite have the beard yet. I met him in 2002.
Okay, yeah,
that was a while ago.
But, Looks just like him, though. But yeah, one thing I did wonder, like, I thought it was also interesting in the story was the, when you read issue 0, because Ares, like, it's like the time between issue 0 and whenever this action starts, that how he faded must have happened. Seemed like it happened pretty quickly. You know what I mean? I don't know. That was one of the things that popped in my head because he's incredibly robust, and the beard's red and everything like that. And, I don't know.
Bro, sometimes it's just one bad year, and
one bad day, man. That's all.
But,
after thousands of years.
Yeah, but geez, now you got me. What was I just thinking? Because I was just skimming through again, and yeah, no, God, why am I blanking on this? I had it all ready.
He had a whole bit ready.
I had a whole it was profound and interesting. I promise, but no, just Azzarello's whole sort of take on you know what it was? He did, like I said, he took Themyscira more or less off the board for most of the run very early.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also did a bit where, because Diana's like fought the new gods and all that stuff, and you have Orion show up, and it's perfect because the way it's done, you just see him and Highfather. That's it.
Yeah.
Whenever anyone else sees new gods, like, oh, we're getting Dark Side, we're getting this, that. No, you're just getting Orion and Highfather. That's it.
Yeah, and Orion works. I mean, like, he's kind of like the he's calling her legs all the time, but he's down. And then you got all these other characters too, the other demigods, like Lennox. I think he's basically John Constantine. Let's be honest, right?
100%.
Oh, absolutely.
I was like, was Azzarello like, can I make Constantine one of the demigods? Can Constantine be her brother?
That might have been the other book he was supposed to do.
Dude, that might be. He might have
And
been Justly Dark.
You put in Constantine.
That was a great moment too when the firstborn throws his head.
Oh my god! What about when Hera just puts the head on the mantle, and then they never resolve that? I guess his head is still just on that mantle.
Yeah, it's there.
Well, she probably gave up that apartment, right? Because she went back to being a god.
Oh, that's right. I mean, that's a cool bit too, where they humanize Hera, and I like the bit too because where Hermes is like, you forgave her, you can't forgive me. He's like, I'm just trying to get back on y'all's good side, man. I was trying to protect the baby. Let's talk about the artwork.
Yes.
When Cliff Chiang is on the artwork, it soars. I freaking love it. The simple line work, but it's deceptively simple. There's so much thought in these layouts, in this composition. It has got an energetic flow. All of the characters have a different figure. They have a different face. It's not the same face on a bunch of different people, like different bodies. Like it's Strife is Strife, another great character that I don't think we mentioned yet. The interpretations of all the gods, and then in order to keep the book on time, and they were really trying hard at the time to keep the books at $2.99 and to keep them on time.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Tony Akins. I don't know who picked him to go side by side with Cliff Chiang, but that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
That was really bad. But then they got Goran Sudzuka to kind of come in and fill out the final half of the run. I like it. The artwork seems simpler. It doesn't seem as dynamic as Cliff's work, but that stuff's pretty solid. And I think it works with Cliff's work a lot better than Tony's did. So overall, I think the artwork's great. It doesn't feel inconsistent except for early on when it switches to the Tony Akins stuff, which does kind of bother me. What do you think about the artwork, Joe?
Yeah, I'm more or less with you on that. This time reading it, as opposed to when I was first reading it when it was just coming out, the fill-in artists, like it didn't like Tony at the time I was reading, it didn't bother me as much. But like this time, reading it like in rapid succession and going right from Cliff to like another artist was really jarring. It's really obvious, and no matter what, all the fill-in issues just don't look as good. Some of them look really not good, but overall though, again, like all of the everything they did with Cliff, and they made sure Cliff was on those like last 3 issues, So, it's like a lot of runs where, you go like, oh, okay, there's a few fill-ins here and there. Oh, there. Okay, they're starting to stack up a little bit. All right. Okay, cool. He's there for the last, 3 in a row. Great. But yeah, the coloring cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
The coloring a lot of times gets you through some of the fill-ins because it still really pops. But yeah, all the designs are incredible. Hades in particular just stuck in my mind ever since I read this. It was just brilliant designs on everyone. The Amazon costumes, Hippolyta in the clay and the way that was designed, amazing. Strife, wonderful. How they put them together, how just the simple looks for Orion and Highfather. When we got them, everything felt like you're saying, it was energetic. There's kinetic energy going on. There's movement, even in a lot of the smaller scenes. It still feels like they're alive, even if they're just arguing in an apartment. So I really think that's a big part of what gets this run to soar. I do know some of the controversy too between some of the diehard fans. The bracers and the breastplate being silver instead of gold. Yeah, really got to some people.
That didn't it? That's what they changed it to gold in the Finch run.
Yeah,
right.
They brought the gold back.
We'll change it back to gold, but she has to wear pants.
Yeah, that run was something. But
I like the silver. I think the silver works better.
It does.
I think it does, but that's just me. Yeah. All good points there. The artwork does work. That coloring really does kind of keep it all together, even throughout the different artists that come in there and the interpretations of the characters. And like I said, I've been thinking for 10 years why Hades has that crown of candles, right? Well, candles, the light represents the soul, right? And they even mentioned at one point that Hades was built with the flame that can never be extinguished. And that's the flame of life. Hades is actually built on life. Think about it. That's what the candles are, right? And apparently, if you break one off and throw it at a seeing mirror, it stops it from working. That's kind of convenient, but that's cool. J-Strick, what do you think about the artwork?
This artwork's fire, man. I mean, reading this for the first time all these years ago. We keep bringing that up. It's really taking me back. I remember the moment where it really just stuck out to me. It's the issue where she gets the armor, and it was just badass, man. I was just like, the coloring popped. Like Joe said, the kinetic energy was just flowing for me in all the panels. I found myself this time reading through it. When it did get to those issues, it did kind of take me out of the story a little bit. And I felt like a kid that had this really nice toy and then someone took it away from me. I just wanted it back. I was fiending for Chiang's artwork. And I don't think those first few issues, it really took me out. But towards the end, I don't think it took me out as much. I would have loved to see him on all of it, but obviously I understand artists have other things they're working on and whatnot. But yeah, the artwork is just truly, truly fire. Loved it.
Artwork is fire. And I'll tell you this, Cliff Chiang's got a better track record on Wonder Woman than Frank Whiteley did on New X-Men. Isn't that right, Brian? What do you think about the artwork?
That is exactly right. I 100% agree with that. Because those shifts are pretty jarring. I agree with what everybody was saying. Because I do remember it was coming out, and I'm always disappointed when the artists change. It doesn't matter. I'm always disappointed. But this time going through, I thought Tony Akins, the first one he did, which was number 6, was bad. It was. I felt like this was to meet the deadline, and he rushed it and everything. But I felt like he picked up the style a little better for the other couples that he did, but it was still different. right? I mean, it was still like, it still kind of takes you out momentarily when you're, after you're reading some of Cliff's. And I thought Goran overall did a good job with it. It's still different, but it's still like the styles that he was using and it was still in there. But yeah, and that was a great point about the color. Tying all those things together, because the colors are striking for a lot of this, and we're talking about different character designs, and I noticed nobody mentioned Eros with his guns. I thought that was super dope, because that's one of my favorite covers is number 8, where Wonder Woman's like, flying off to the side like a, kung fu action movie, with shooting the hearts out of the gun, where the flares are hearts. But I thought Wonder Woman's costume design was great. And the omnibus, it actually has a couple of notes going along with it. And it reminded me that like her hairstyle is like a classical Greek hairstyle, and they, had her with olive skin, and they were really trying to ground it in that Greek mythology, which I thought was just brilliant. But, you can just go on and on about the character designs in this. But I did also want to share that a couple months ago, I got really stressed out, and I made a stress purchase of a couple of original pages from this run. Since this is the artwork section, I thought I'd throw them up there.
Yo,
that's awesome.
That's fucking dope.
Hermes
dude.
and Artemis fighting.
Nice.
It's from issue 11. And there's Lennox there. Then I got one more, because I did have to get one with Wonder Woman in it.
Yeah.
So I got this from issue 8, where they're going into Hades, I believe. Hermes and Wonder Woman, and then the statues break.
That's great.
So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Jealous.
So that's what stress does occasionally to me.
What a cool freaking moment, by the way, when those statues start breaking and it's just like the Cenobites are in there and they're coming out.
Yeah,
to like,
that was exactly what I was thinking when I was reading, because we're watching all these movies. I was like, that's the Cenobites. Love it.
Yeah. But yeah, like,
was that it, Brian?
No, yeah.
I don't know if we're doing the freeze bit.
We can talk about the different characters just, on end, because like, we didn't see much of Zeus, and his was just so cool, with the eagle feathers and everything, and of course naked, right? Because he's, impregnating half the world.
I like the firstborn too, right? Like the firstborn, he's got like it was supposed to be like dragon scale, like hide or some shit that he's wearing, right? With like claws or something like that. It's pretty dope.
And then he just becomes a real beast, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, as it goes, it just keeps, decaying everything about it.
He starts looking more and more like a Frank Miller character as it goes on. Like by the end of it, I'm just like, is that Marv? Like, what's going on there, man?
So.
Yeah, really good bits right there. All right, let's talk about our favorite moments. So, Joe, what's one of your favorite moments of this entire run?
I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, even like just the first issue when the ritual to create the centaurs, like that's like right out the gate, I was like, oh, we're in for something here, because like that added that like next level of gore, body horror to the series. It showed you this was absolutely going to be a different take. Like that for me in that first issue was the moment where I'm like, all right, we're going somewhere new with this. Turning Hippolyta to clay and her coming back were both for me nice moments. Just a lot of the little bits of humanizing Hera, where she would do something, either someone else or like Hermes or Zola or someone would have been like, what are you doing? And like why are you like this, or why would you do this thing? And her trying to like defend certain things she used to, like just watching her grow as a character was great. And that moment I mentioned earlier with War, and she's hallucinating and thinks it's War, not Strife, who's like talking to her when she's bleeding out. Like that might be like the moment for the series. Yeah.
Super solid, man. What about you, J-Strick? What are some of your favorite moments of the run?
I love, like Joe just said, there's so many moments, obviously, in this run, but what comes to mind, I love the moment when they first introduce Warren. He's just in that bar, and all the bodies are it's just destruction all around him. And I love also when they introduce the Firstborn, and just you learn his whole history, and then he's just standing there on that cliff, and they're like, "What are you doing, dude?" And he's like, "Waiting for a sign." And I was like, "This is like epic, man. This should be a movie. What are we doing? I want to see this." So I really love those moments.
I love those moments too. What about you, Brian? What are some moments you love?
I definitely got several, but like when you said the reveal of the Firstborn, but one of my favorite pages actually is the end of issue 12. It's just the last page because it's what makes comics awesome in my mind. It's 4 widescreen panels, and the top 2 are cold as ice. And the Firstborn's coming out of the ice, and then the bottom 2 are Orion. And it's just fire. It's just bright red. I mean, it's a brilliant page. I stared at it for a while when I was reading it. This one, I don't know. I really like that one. And then I liked how Wonder Woman got her powers of flight, because she was like jumping and Hermes threw a feather. Hit her thigh.
Yeah, that
I thought that just looked so cool, and I just got so excited. Like I just got, I don't know. Then when Hera gets her powers back, because the Firstborn's like taking Apollo apart, and then just kind of switches scenes abruptly, and you just see that green fireball while she's trying to figure out at a wine restaurant what to order,
what she wants to drink
wine, and then she fully comes back. It was just that brilliant green fireball and everything, and but then you guys have mentioned so many good ones, but and this is maybe it's a minor one, but like I was super excited and pumped while when they were trying to get away from the Firstborn through the boom tube, and he was keeping it open.
Oh yeah,
the way he was just struggling with that.
That's great.
Like you just felt all of that, because if you've read New Gods coming in, you know how like insane that stuff is and everything. And but then that was where Lennox saved the day, right? He fell down the thing and like sacrificed himself, which was a beautiful moment for me because I love that character. I thought he was so cool, and yeah, he's definitely John Constantine, but I don't know. 100%. That was to me, some of those are definitely some of my favorite moments. But you can, just like the artwork and the character designs, you can go on.
We could go on and on and on, right? Absolutely. Some of my favorite moments: the death of War. That's a great moment, like when she has to stab War through and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I love Apollo. And like J-Strick said, he's pimp, man. He's
pimping, man.
He makes Olympus corporate. That's a great moment. But every time I read this, I'm just like, bruh, calm down on torture and the Firstborn. Like,
he's
do you not
11,
know how
dude.
this story is gonna end, man? and it doesn't end good for him. No. And but it works, and it's a good bit. And I love when he explodes and blows up and all that stuff.
Yeah.
When you first meet the Firstborn, and he just eats the fuck out of that dude's head so he can learn the language. That's a good moment. I love when Diana shoots Hades with the bullet as he's looking in the mirror, so maybe he can love himself. I don't think that worked, but it was cool that she made that attempt, I thought. And to kind of go back to what Joe was saying with the humanizing of Hera, I love how her and Zola are fighting over the remote, over what to watch. That's a really, and like, of course Hera likes the Cardassians or whatever, right? Or the Kardashians. My bad. I got confused with Star Trek. So yeah, there you go. All right. Before we get to our favorite, or what we think the themes are, real quick, favorite character aside from Diana in the book, I'll just say Hades, because I want to leave some good ones for y'all. I love this interpretation of Hades. He's way better than Gary Oldman in a suit, like he's from Dracula 92. That's usually what he is. He's usually this corporate guy. This was a really interesting interpretation of this character that I wish still kind of happened today. What about you, Joe? What's a favorite character?
Oh, you know what? Strife was one of the characters who I kind of fell in love with, like when I was first reading it, right from the beginning. And then she doesn't end up being as important throughout the series. So then, as I was reading it, I'd find other sort of favorite characters along the way. But reading it again this last week, I appreciate her a lot more because she was the way, and this goes back to how brilliant Brian Azzarello was putting the story together. She's the wild card, and she doesn't actually play it that often, but she's always there. And I having, read so much more since then and written myself, it's like to see such like a beautiful use of a character like that, to be like, oh, she's that, what was it like when Hitchcock would describe that, like the bomb under the table situation where it's like the audience knows it's there, but the people at the table don't. Yeah. Like that kind of thing, where it's like we all know something, like we're all like, she's gonna do, what are you doing? Like, and I think she just being there adds a lot to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of just being here, adding a lot, J-Strick, what about you? A favorite character?
I think I mentioned a few of mine already. Warren, the Firstborn. So to do something different, I know you said earlier that people didn't like this take on him, but I thought Poseidon was fun as hell. Mm-hmm. His whole battle scene was awesome. I just love the way he was drawn too. They did a really good job with that, and that's kudos to Chiang and Azzarello for including that in the whole script, because I thought that was such an interesting take and such a fun bit, honestly.
I love the part where like he swallows the Firstborn, and then he's like, yeah, you could kill me, but then you'd be stuck in my corpse forever. And I'm like, I don't know, man. The dude was stuck at the center of the earth and climbed out over 7,000 years. But
yes.
All right, Brian, what about you?
I know the first time I read it, my favorite Greek god coming in was Hermes, and and I loved this interpretation of him. I just it had everything that I thought about him, and he was a hero in a lot of different ways in this. But I'd never had much knowledge of Hera from Greek mythology because she was always just Zeus's wife. But I thought she had a great run through this story. Actually transformative and everything. And but I think some of the best lines like kind of came from Hephaestus. That one's hard to pronounce. But where he was saying like, he makes stuff and everything like that. And she said that he tinkered with one of her things, and he said, well, that's really all gods do is tinker. And, I don't know, just a lot of really cool moments. But I guess like this time, like I was really enjoying Hera's story through this one. So, but I remember the first one, like I loved Hermes, and I thought it was just great. So,
well, one more again before we get any further. Back on the writing, Brian Azzarello likes to do this kind of wordplay type stuff.
Yes.
Sometimes he does it too much in this run. Just sometimes. Like everybody's trying to be so damn clever with what they're saying, and it's just like, bruh, come on, man. The dialogue in Dawson's Creek is more believable than this page, but they're gods. Who are we to say? What is this story about? Overall, the entire thing of what Brian and Cliff and company are trying to tell. What does this book mean to you, Joe?
Oh, geez. I mean, a lot of it is it's building a, because the journey you really see with Wonder Woman, for example, is it's all about she has the ability to do it, and it's about having that confidence to make the decisions you need to in life. And that's really what I felt the story was all about, because it's all throughout it. It's just, she's very confident, and it's just about using your confidence appropriately, because she, taking on Zola, all of that, going through being willing to take everything in stride, because she does learn she doesn't know everything. She does learn that certain things are rough, like the whole issue where the men didn't want to escape and they thought it was awful that she was trying to free them. She she takes her lumps and she moves right along. And that's a level of confidence in Wonder Woman you don't often see. I feel like in a lot of runs. So I really think it's about, understanding yourself, your confidence, and using your confidence wisely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well put, Mr. Joe. What about you, J-Strick? What's this story speaking to you?
I think you could take a lot of different things away from this, obviously, but I guess for me, I really, when I read this, and I think this still sticks with me, reading it now as almost 30, overcoming
Jesus.
the odds. Yeah,
You poor man.
I'm so old. 3 more years and I can start my ministry. Overcoming the odds. Every time her back's against the wall, she finds a way. She does. She truly does. Even when it's all the odds are against her, right? You got Firstborn, you got all these demigods, whatever. She rallies, man. She comes through.
She rallies. She comes through. Hell yeah! And she uses that confidence. She uses the abilities that she has within her, right? And she rises above. That's what Wonder Woman represents. That's why people responded so well in that movie. Because they kind of got that right. That no man's land scene.
Yeah.
That's Diana right there. That's great. No matter what. Oh, this terrible stuff, this prophecy. Oh, all these gods, all this power. It doesn't matter to her. She's going to keep coming at them. And that's what happens. What about you, Brian? What's this book speaking to you?
Well, yeah, I noticed when we talked about our favorite characters, I don't think anybody said Wonder Woman, but
I said aside from Wonder Woman.
That's obvious.
Oh, aside. Okay, all right.
It's too obvious.
Anyway, okay,
too
well,
obvious.
so then we followed the rules, which I'm glad that we did. But one of the things I got from this is it's kind of like I think the line is from Ender's Game, but it's like how you win matters, right? Because I mean, in a lot of these cases, like she could have, like in the Zero issue, she could have cut Minotaur's head off and ended that threat. In certain time, like, she uses mercy and it pays off. Like it's not just I turn the other cheek or anything. It actually pays off later on down in the story. And another thing I thought just like from those actions though is how she was inspiring all the other people around her too. Like all of these demigods and gods. Now it took Hera to be become mortal really for her to make those transformations, but she made transformations though, like that, changed her character fundamentally.
Yeah.
Just you guys were mentioning confidence. I was jotting down just about courage, just in impossible odds,
Sure.
It's, which just goes along with the inspirational thing. Like, I mean, like she's just, I think Wonder Woman is one of the most inspirational characters in comics. I mean, it pretty much stays true to her core, no matter what she's facing. And I think that's really cool. So,
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned courage because, for instance, she takes on the role of the god of war for a little bit in this run. They don't really.
Yeah.
That could have been a way more interesting, like 12 to 18
could've.
issue kind of thing.
I would have been there for that too.
But we view war as one thing, this destructive, terrible force. But the sphere of influence that is represented by war also represents bravery and courage, the courage of the soldier, the bravery of the soldier, the nobility of the soldier. That's the opposite of the destructive. That's the opposite destructive energy of the constructive energy of the beneficial God, the king in peace, right? And so representing the warrior means more than just slaughtering people, right? It represents something to the core, and that courage comes through. What is this book about to me? It's that Diana doesn't have friends. She's got family, and whoever is the first to grab food at the table has to say grace. That's just the way it goes, right? But no, all that family kidding aside, this is what it means to me. Family doesn't determine who you are.
Mm-hmm.
For
like,
sure.
Absolutely.
She has this stigma attached to her early on where she's called clay in a very derogatory manner, right?
Yeah.
And she doesn't feel like she fits in there because she's different. Then she winds up finding out that her parentage is different. She's the daughter of Zeus. Now she's got this new family, and that's a world that she doesn't fit in with. Yeah. So many of us can feel like we don't fit in with our family or even our chosen family, like our friends, the people that come along in our lives, right? The people around you don't necessarily determine who you are, especially your family, your blood relations. That all that hate on Themyscira, all the conniving machinations of the gods, none of that changes who Diana is. She is still who she is and representing courage, confidence, honesty, truth, mercy, and just badassery, right? Yeah. That's what I think the damn book's about. Let's talk about the legacy, though. Sadly, I think the legacy of this book doesn't really stand the test of time. They kind of wrote out some stuff. I never read the Finch stuff, so I don't know what they did with Zola and all that, because we get Zola at the end, and, you know, they're like, well, can Zola still be a real person? And just feels like that there was a lot of missed opportunity because Azzarello built up a really great, like imagine a writer coming in and now being able to fold in all the familiar stuff from the Perez or the Loeb's run in with that and make it work together. But I just feel like they've abandoned it for the most part. I think they still reference her as being the daughter of Zeus sometimes, but that might be it. What do you think about the legacy? What's the legacy of this book, Joe?
I think you're more or less onto it. I think that's kind of going to be really the only thing that people take from it. Or, I mean, we're still in desperate need of new directions for Wonder Woman. Honestly, the legacy of this run is probably that it's the last good run on the book. You know, I enjoyed Mariko Tamaki's run and all that, but this is a run. You know what I mean? There's been some decent stuff, but nothing has been better than this since this has come out. And that, unfortunately, might be the legacy. Not unfortunately for the book, but unfortunately for everyone else.
Yeah, for us that want to read something as good of this involving Diana, right? You should convince your homie Perch to maybe do a sales analysis of Wonder Woman. That would be cool to see. Yeah. See how it actually sold, because I remember people that read it and continued to read it loved it. But, you know, there were some people that at the time, a lot of people jumped out. But like J-Strick said, a lot of people jumped in. What's the legacy of this book for you, J-Strick?
I think the legacy, I mean, I remember it for is such an empowering story. It affected me. And I hope that someone comes along and uses this fantastic run, as y'all just said, a long run too, honestly, for comics these days, uses this as a blueprint for something they can maybe add to it. Because I think there's still things you could explore. I mean, you have all those demigods and gods like that were just there for a little bit, so there's things you could do. Yeah, I think empowering is the word that comes to mind when I think about this, for sure.
You know, we are in the Omniverse now at DC, so this run does count, and it did happen. Yes. So anybody, you know, you're just saying. You know, you guys, if anybody, Joe, if you want to pitch something with DC outside of this, that's cool. I got an idea. I'm going to pitch The Adventures of Milan and Orion, because I want to know more about why they are such friends in this book, to be honest. I want to know more about that. But Ryan, what about you?
Weapon. There's going to be a lethal weapon with Milan and Orion.
Dude, and like Orion's going to be on the toilet, and is going to be a bomb underneath it. It's going to be really cool. Yeah. What do you think, Brian? What's the legacy of this run?
This one's hard for me because, like you guys were saying, I mean, it doesn't seem like it really bled over into anything else. No. And you know, Joe, when you were talking about maybe being the last run, it's like that just seems to be the way it goes these days, right? I mean, they don't even do runs. Right? No. I mean, everything's like a 5-issue story, and it's like, will another one? You know, it's I don't know. I don't like to be a downer, but like I don't know what the legacy here is. Other than it just reminds me that one of the reasons why I got into comics when I was younger was in the middle of, you know, Chris Claremont's X-Men run is what, like, you know, fully solidified me into there. And those, I don't want to say those days are gone, But if you're talking about Big Two comics, is it going to come back? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean,
Well,
doesn't seem
Zdarsky's
like
had
that's
a
the
healthy run on Daredevil that's hitting 35 issues or whatever till it's canceled so they can do an event and then bring it back with the new #1. So
that's true.
But yeah.
That's
Well,
true.
Joshua Williamson had that long Flash run.
Yeah.
That shit was fire.
Yeah. It's
And
still what happened.
And then Tom King had that Batman run, but then it ended at like issue like 50 or something like that. It's too bad.
It shoulda.
Right? Yeah.
It shoulda.
As far as a lot of people were concerned, it ended at
I know.
issue 50.
I know Robbie's a big fan of the Nick Spencer Spider-Man stuff.
Oh man, I am so freaking excited because it's almost over. And I hate to applaud the end of a run, except for unless it's in this case where you're like a tale well told, gentlemen and ladies. But usually it's just like I'm ready for something new.
That killed me though, yeah, because Bill, on your point, because this has been Spider-Man back to back. Because by the time Dan Slott was done, I was ready for that to be done. And I feel bad. I bet the guy have Spider-Man stuff from him signed. It's nothing personal for him, but like when like your buddy's been like over like crashing with you just a little too long, kind of like, all right, buddy, like we get it. You like Spider-Man. Go.
It's time to move on.
Do something else.
Yeah.
But no, it's a.
Yeah,
and
I'm excited for the Spencer. Yeah, I'm excited for the Spencer run and something new and different to pop up. And I hear they're doing the idea of what if Ben Reilly's the real Spider-Man. So I'm really excited for that.
How sad is the state of comics where you're like, I'm excited for some more references to the Clone Saga.
I know, right? Well, I was at age range. I still think Scarlet Spider was the coolest shit ever. I'm just like, give him the hoodie again. Give him the hoodie. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, the legacy is this. Wonder Woman's in need of some change. Even Greg Rucka came in and did a run I thought was decent enough. But like, I think Greg's first run was better than his second, though you did have Liam Sharp's artwork, right? So that was cool.
That was cool. But yeah,
and the Nicola Scott stuff. I like that for the most part. But like, maybe the next Wonder Woman team after Becky and Will should be like, when's the last time Joe, J-Strick, Brian, and Robbie liked Wonder Woman? And be like, what can we pull from this Azzarello Chiang run? And there you go, right?
Yeah.
So now it's time to rate it. You out there in the chat, if you've read this run, what do you give it out of 5? You digs? What do you give it, Joe?
It's hard to not give it 5, even though, like, I guess maybe like 4.5 or 4.75. Like it's only got minor imperfections, but even then, changing them is probably not even realistic. It's like, you should have gotten one more issue and Cliff should have drawn more of it. It's really just, that's just not even realistic. So like, if I'm being a bully, it's like 4.5. If I'm being genuine, it's a 5.
All right. So we'll just chalk that up to a 4.69.
Excellent. Yeah. Great.
All right. What about you, J-Strick?
It's 5, you digs, man. This is comic goodness. This is something when I came back into the industry that inspired me. I could not put down an issue when it came out. And it brings me back to that. Like I said, there's been a little bit of disdain for superhero comics right now. But it brought me back to that and reminded me why I fell in love with comics in the first place. So station for this run. And just like Joe said, I just wanted more Cliff. That's all we really wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep telling you, J-Strick, you need to check out the new Green Lantern run. I think you'd really like it. I really do. I think they're doing something different over there, and it's interesting. It's fun. What about you, Brian? Out of 5 you digs, what do you give the new 52 Wonder Woman by Azzarello and Chiang?
5 right off the bat. I don't like you guys are saying. I mean, there's a little bit to nitpick here and there, but so very little. So very little. And then because like I was saying earlier, to me, this just is like a Greek epic brought into modern comic book storytelling. I mean, you had, you even had like the weird torture kind of things from Greek myths. I mean, it just like, and while they're modern interpretations, things fit so well.
Oh,
you know,
what
it
about
wasn't like modern interpretations that make no sense?
yeah? What about
You know.
Kronos being Hades' throne and his tears are his blood? Like, holy shit! Like,
Yeah.
what a
I mean, yeah, and then like Hades, then they were feeding him Hades, right? I mean, it's just like, and this it wasn't a Greek myth, but it just sounds like one.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. It really does.
You wouldn't question its placement in a Greek myth. So, but yeah, this won't be the last time I reread it. I mean, and if Wonder Woman ever comes up, this is the first one I recommend. Like, if you can get your hands on this storyline, this is it. And if you have less time, do Dead Earth, but do this one, when you get the time, because it's just that good.
Yeah, you recommend it to someone and they go, "Man, that was awesome, Brian. What's next?" And you're like,
I got Dead Earth over here.
And then they're like, "Wait a second, this doesn't what?" Anyway, it's fine.
No, I'll turn that over to Joe. I'll be like, Joe knows this.
Yeah, Elseworlds is fine, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that they deserved another issue, and I think Cliff should have done more of it. So I'll give it a 4.5. I'll be that guy. I don't care.
Okay.
A 4.5, I think, is super solid for this run. It could be 5, but it's not for me. But I do like the run. The interpretation, like Brian said, it's a Greek story. It's a Greek tragedy. It's epic. It's big, and what they did in 35 plus issues was amazing compared to what a lot of people do today. Like, I was talking about the Zdarsky Daredevil run, which I do like for the most part, but that book feels like it meanders around too much. This book never felt like that. Everything. And I read the first 6 issues like a week ago, and I read all of the rest of them on Saturday because I took the whole weekend off, and I read it all back to back. I'm serious as hell, dude. My leg was asleep, but I didn't even care. I was engrossed in it, man. The pacing was great. They didn't linger too long on one thing and too little on another. It works. 4.5, super solid for me. 4.69 from Joe. 5 from these dudes for a PCP average of 4.69, dudes. Yes. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight for our revisit of Wonder Woman New 52. Next month, the last Monday of September, join me and Brian and Verno from the Cerebros podcast, and maybe another guest. We'll see. Because I don't know if you ever heard of this guy, Jonathan Hickman, but he's got a book called Inferno coming out. So we felt it was appropriate to revisit one of my favorite Jonathan Hickman books, Pax Romana. So there you go. That's your homework. That's the book club. PCP book club for September is Pax Romana by Jonathan Hickman. So me and Brian are really excited to dive deep into a 4-issue series instead of yet another 30 plus issue series. So
I figured we could just read the book on the show and then talk about it.
We just read it out loud. We'll take on different pieces, like a table read, right? Yeah. Cool. Can I be the Pope? Yeah. Can I be the kid Pope? Anyway, if you've never read Pax Romana, I think it's super awesome. You should totally check it out. So now we're at the end of the show. So Joe, tell us what you got going on. I know you got a comic book Beck star, got Deadbeats. You got appearances over at Comics by Perch and future appearances here. By the way, the winner of the Joe Corallo poll for PCP Horror Fest was Satan's Little Helper. I'm very excited, Joe.
It's a good time. I'm
excited too.
I've seen it on the big screen, so
nice.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. But yeah, I've got Beckstar coming out. Issue 4 is out. It should be, if it didn't come last week, it's coming this week.
It's out. It is out
last week.
Yeah, it's out.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's 5 issues. So if you could plenty of time to catch up before issue 5 comes out. The Deadbeats Volume 2, London Calling, is available through pre-order right now. It's in Diamond Previews. We also resolicited the first volume, so you can get that as well. I am the editor of Lost on Planet Earth by Magdalene Saggio and Claudia Guerra. That is out now in trade paperback through Dark Horse. So yeah, it's plenty of stuff out there if you'd like. And of course, She Said Destroy is still available if you haven't checked that one out yet. And if you're not quite sure, The first issue is free on Vault's website.
Station, right? How cool is that? J-Strick, what's coming up for you, buddy?
Well, over here at PCP, we have Horror Fest starting this Friday with all 10 Hellraiser films, and we're gonna have a good old time. We got a solid crew, right? I don't know who's all on that one, but it's gonna be hella fun because I love these movies, man.
Yeah,
they're so much fun. I don't think I dislike actually any of them except maybe 9. 9's pretty bad, but they're all so much fun.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of horror, we got what, 2 months of horror movies coming up?
Yeah, look at that. It's like Jim Mint said, it's like Robbie on tour. Like, what's going on there?
It's really good.
I'm
and
excited
don't worry,
to watch.
I'm adding more. I'm doing a Linnea Quigley appreciation 4 weeks in a row on Rockin Robbie Live. You just wait. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I'm really pumped to have you on Horror Fest, J-Strick. And for the Hellraiser review, it's me, you, Jelani, Brooks, and the Dylan. So,
Nice.
Brian, what's coming up for you?
Well, a week from tonight, around this time, we're going to interview Gavin Smith, the artist of Dead Legends. Dead Legends 2, a print issue came out, but I think it's available digitally right now. And then a trade will be available, I think it's mid-October. And he also is going to be on a Star Trek comic, Mirror War. So that was recently announced. And if you're in the PCP Army, I probably posted my commission from him of Wolverine fighting about 300 ninjas. Because
I'm sure he appreciated that. You were like 300 exactly, right?
No, I just said some kind of action scene. If you check his stuff out, because like his commissions and one pieces are some of the most detailed things you'll find. I mean, it's I don't know. I'm looking forward to that interview. So I think I might actually be available for Fright Night, but I can't remember which Horror Fest ones I was supposed to do already. So you'll send me a message later.
What you agreed to Funhouse.
Funhouse. Who did that one?
Toby Hooper.
He did what else?
Poltergeist.
I'm sorry, I already forgot.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Massacre.
Come on, bro. Act like you want to be on
bro.
Horror Fest.
What
is this?
You were there, young man.
We got people begging every week. Can I get on Horror Fest? Can I get on Horror Fest? And Brian's like, who's Toby Hooper?
What the hell is Toby Hooper?
I figure that's my job for the horror thing, is to ask the questions because nobody else is going to ask these dumb questions. I'll ask the questions so that people will know.
All right. You may not see Brian again except for the Gavin Smith interview. Anyway. We love you, PCP Army. Thank you so much. We have been nominated for 3 CBC awards. We've been nominated for Best Collaboration with the Monthly Comic Book Review. And that's with Bueller and Bob and Dylan. And I've been nominated for Lifetime Achievement Award, which makes me feel weird. Trust me. I'm like, Lifetime Achievement Award. Okay, it's the Stan Lee Award, which also makes me feel weird. But we're also nominated for Channel of the Year. So I would really appreciate if everybody would go to cbcawards.org and vote to your own liking. But a vote for PCP, an angel gets its wings. I don't know. Every vote for PCP, we're more likely to see Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang come back for Wonder Woman. Just lying. Y'all have a good one. Stay